What's going on, everyone? Grand Ascension is me, baby girl Slaughter, Carolyn Denise, back to do another reading. I had posted, I think it was yesterday morning, I reshared over on YouTube, or maybe it's been Wednesday. I reshared over on YouTube a video that I did, I guess back last year, over Claudio Naselli's work. Hey, you guys, stop fighting. And I wanted you guys to revisit that video because I was reading from this book, okay, The Dome and the Outer Space Projection. And what I got to thinking when I was reading current book, Tesla and the Cabbage Patch Kids, chapter 3, it brought some things home to me. So I wanted to see if I can lay this in. Now, this is going to be a short one, so I'm going to have to come back and kind of do this in stages. So let me just read something to you from Claudio, and then we're going to get into the Tartarian destruction, the reset that happened in the 1700s. My point is that what if our ancient ancestors knew this information? They did. They most definitely did. And we know this because of the buildings, the technology that was in the cities. Of course, we have the Anunnaki, the custodians, the layer of the 13 families, the different organizations, and, families under that. So we have this hierarchy structure in place. And during the Tartarian time, I'm more than sure that our ancestors had this information based on the technology and based on these grand structures and the buildings. The libraries that were available at the time, majority of those books, they want to say that they were burned. They were not. The Vatican has it, and more than sure, there are some private collectors and families that have books too, especially when you have books on the Anunnaki structure and the different families that came from other locations or other cellular membranes. Okay, Claudio's work, he talks about the dome theory and the cellular structure and the universal worlds. He breaks that down, and I've read that to you guys. But I just want to call attention to this picture, because if our ancestors knew this, they knew that they were not from here and they were from other membranes like these. Would it not serve them to have the technology to travel to and from these worlds? And then it shows, or they edify it through the architecture, right? Especially with the 0 point of free energy. This is what I read to you in chapter 2. That is why Rockefeller and the other gentlemen had a major problem on their hands. So they had to set up shop all around the world with these Cabbage Patch clone babies that they had. Some were taken. Parents were murdered, unalived, during the last reset. And then there were a lot that were cloned. Okay. And they've been inserted into our civilization now, right? That's why you see all these alien abductions and these things. It's not a far stretch. It really isn't when you start to lay the pieces together. So seeing that these different worlds operate independently of each other and with each other, and knowing the information that we know now, the last reset, they really had to be ready to implement this new world that we have now. The technology, they had to destroy what was already here by the Tartarian reset. They had to infiltrate the Tartarian families and kingships, and then unalive or marry in and change the bloodlines, okay, to what we have now. And that's not a far stretch at all. If you look at Antarctica and the Arctic in Antarctica, you will see that there are certain groups of countries that are in a treaty. They may be at war here in the known lands, but when you get down to Antarctica, all peaches. When I say all peaches, meaning they have a treaty and they stand by that treaty, and they're doing work with extraterrestrials, beings that are from beyond the ice walls. I don't care how you feel. The puzzle pieces are there. So among the theories that we can begin to analyze on one of these is to expose the great invisible dome as a means of a projection. Take into account what we have been talking about, all the resets and the custodians search to reach out what seems to be the perfect colony, okay, which is totally away from the discovery of its own home and the worlds that surround it. Then this is an opportunity will be a good way to path or generate an environment even more distant from reality. In this way, the modern human being could start to have different perspective about the world and the surrounding universe anyway. Who would dare to get close to the invisible dome or discover such truth? Added to the fact that the custodians and Anunnaki added great ice walls and a hostile climate surrounding those latitudes in Antarctica and in the Arctic, okay? All this is a favorable field to start manipulating our reality in an absolute way, added to 3 legs we mentioned before together with education from childhood. It would be a perfect combo to not question about the outer space that seems to surround us and that we see every day in night skies. So what I'm simply telling you is that this projection, this is our dome world, it's technology that we see. So when we're looking up at the sky, we're not looking at the way it used to be. Okay. And I'm trying to find the last book where Claudio talks about one of the gentlemen, one of the admirals that went beyond the ice walls, and one of the giants that took him up so that he could see the waters above. It's the technology. They had to use a certain form of technology in order to pierce through that barrier where you could actually see it with your own eyes, if that makes sense. And I'm trying to find what book it was in, and I can't lay my hands on it because I wanted to show you a picture. It's the upper and lower water. So when it talks in text about, creating this world, yeah, they use what was already here and utilized it, okay? And if you haven't checked out that video from Woodward where he was talking about plasma beings and unseen beings that surround us, I highly recommend you check that out. I was just listening to it again, and it struck me that we are electromagnetic beings, and there are beings that are with us around us 24/7 that we cannot see, that Tesla cars, for example, pick those beings up, the plasma beings up. And when it scans it, I've seen videos of it where the car will beep because there is something around the car, but you cannot see it with your human eyes. I'm telling you, our ancestors had this information. They had the technology, and they understood this world a lot better than what we do and what this made up narrative is. Okay. I've seen videos where the Tesla actually showed that there were 2 people standing in front of the car, two beings, plasma beings, maybe energy beings. It was picking up and reading electromagnetic field, but there are 2 beings there. But when the guy flipped the camera up, he showed you what it said in the car, and then he showed you out through his windshield that there was nobody standing there. So I'm simply telling you, our ancestors knew this information. We are so far dumbed down at this point. It's actually kind of disturbing. So let me get into part 3. That's what I wanted to lay in. I'm simply telling you that the Tartarian Empire was much further along, and they had the advancements that they are slowly seeping out today, right? If we follow the narrative, this empire never actually existed, and there are a number of very delicate reasons for this. This is chapter 3, the Tartarian Empire, from Tesla and the Cabbage Patch Tesla and the Cabbage Patch Kids. Sorry. It says, I will try to explain as best I can the following pages of this book. The Tartarian Empire is considered to be the greatest conspiracy theory around today, with a plethora of stooges that target posts on social media and podcasts and try to deter anyone from delving too deeply into this topic and exposing it. And I have to say that he's right, because there are a lot of people now that are still dumbed down and programmed. They're indoctrinated, and they truly believe in this world that we've been given, right? That the families, the Anunnaki bloodline families, set up here, okay? And I mean, I don't care how you feel. It's not about a belief. Belief is a lack of knowledge and knowing. I know for 100% fact that we are dealing with beings that are not, and I hate to use this word, male, female, human. Let me put it that way, human. Okay, you've got other entities, you got other sentient beings here that do not have a good intention. They're malevolent beings that's in control, and they walk around us and they're surrounding us. Now, I'm not saying all of the reptilians are bad. Excuse me. I'm not saying all these beings are bad, but what I'm simply telling you is they have an agenda, and we are deemed to them as useless eaters. Seriously, and that's coming all the way back from the Sumerian text. Okay, so then, if we skip forward and we say the Tartarians are known by several names, but more commonly as the Tartars, and the northern hemisphere, the Tartarian Aryans. How many of you know that when you say Aryan, people think about the white brotherhood, the Aryan nation, but do you not know the original Aryans were my color, and if not darker? I'm just simply telling you. History has been, and no pun intended for my light-skinned brothers and sisters, history has been whitewashed. I mean, if you do your research enough to know, you'll know that. I mean, without a shadow of a doubt. And I'm not saying that to be mean or to be race baiting or anything like that. It's time for us to be adults and put our big girl and big boy pants on and look at the research intelligently and analyze things. Just not go by the quote unquote mainstream narrative of things. That's all I'm saying. I'm just bringing interesting things to you. You research it, you'll see that the Aryans were in fact dark-skinned people. I'm just telling you. And we're talking about the Tartarian Empire. We're talking about us. We're talking about melanated people at that point. There were some light-skinned people here, but not on the scale that we're talking about. And that might rub people the wrong way. I'm sorry. Do your research. That's all I can tell you. So they went by different names, and they want to say that the regions, the countries, and continents under their control, as well as those that shared their technology and a way of life, also went by several different names, including Great Tartaria, Grand Tartary, Tartary, the Tartarian Empire of Free Energy, Independent Tartary, Chinese Tartary, Asiatic Russia. Okay, so when you're looking at all these continents all around this great dome, the first people that were seated here are, I'm not even going to say, seated here, came here, were dark-skinned or melanated people. And that ties back to Hyperboreans, which were blue-black. I'm just saying. So you have that understanding or understanding, and then you start to look at the different places all around the world and the different wars and how they rid themselves of the melanated people, the rulers at the time, right? And I mean, it makes sense when you start to look at all the conflicts all around the world, okay? So it says, the empire encompassed Russia, most of Asia, and spanned across the world to as far away as the east coast of America, okay? He wants to start to say, and I'm going to read this part to you, and I don't necessarily agree with him because I've read other things, and I've seen in other books and maps that say different, okay? So I do have some disagreements on some of these things in the book. The population of the Tartarian Empire in Russia and Asia was estimated at 8 million alone. In fact, the Mongolian Empire was originally known as the Tartarian Empire and was renamed to help hide even further the more powerful empire that ever existed. Around the end of the 18th century, after Great Tartary suffered severely from what is known as the Pugachev's uprising, this name began to be gradually replaced on maps by Peria. Okay, it says Peria, P-E-R-I-A. However, independent Tartary and Chinese Tartary was still displayed until the early 19th century. Following this, the word Tartaria disappeared altogether, and Chinese Tartary began to be called Manchuria. With regard to cartography of all the maps. Now, remember what I said in this book. They had to have a plan to restructure everything once they wiped off the majority of people from the mud flood. Okay. They were never supposed to mess with the American Negro. They weren't, but they did. Okay. And nobody's off limits to these creatures, these beings. Okay. But when you understand the technology we had previously based on the readings and the bones that they found all around here in the U.S. that the Smithsonian has so graciously dug up, you will begin to see that they had help. Okay. So it says, they show Tartaria only as a negligible number have been preserved, at least within the public domain, that is. There are, however, still plenty of books in circulation that refer to the Tartarians and their empire too. There's also an exam paper you can find on Google, which I've downloaded and read, called The Comprehensive System of Modern Geography and History. And I'll share that paper with you guys, and I'll share the link for you too. Written by Edwin Williams in 1835. This was used throughout universities across Americas for many years. One particular book I stumbled across in a secondhand shop is Tartarian. Tuan was a history in a changing world by Berkaloff, and there is a black and white page on 186 that quotes, "Scratch a Russian and you will find a Tartar." An English author named Arthur Bryant wrote a book in 1953 called The Story of England, Makers of the Realm, and again in black and white on pages 353. It's a very interesting sentence that refers to the vast empire. More than 21 years later, after a savage horde of savage Tartars from the Mongolian steppes had overrun Russia and Poland and all but conquered Germany, after Jerusalem had been lost to the infidels. Okay. Bishop Grossetti stood before Pope Innocent and drew a picture of a world in which Christ's church was hemmed into a little corner while its leader neglected its change to war against those who should have been its defenders and brought shame and disillusionment to the faithful by the scandalous trade in benefices. Okay. Within many small libraries are dozens of references to the great nation. A recent purchased title, A History of Empire, 1610 to 1715 by W.F. Ridgway, has the following to say about the Tartars. Now, he's got about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 4.5 pages of references to the Tartarian Empire. I'm just going to read this and then we're going to skip ahead because there's many. It says, there were the Cossacks, a name of Turkish origin given to a body which owed its existence to the intolerable conditions threatened by the invading Tartar hordes. For some 2 centuries, Mongolian ruffians, unchecked by the bribes, had ravaged and enslaved in the Ukraine. From Kiev to Polodian, peril checked the cultivation of a vast area of fertile land. This artificial desert indeed kept Muscovy and the Turkish Empire far apart from the Sultan, was the overlord of the Tartars. And he goes on to say, in this book, he talks about Marco Polo. There's another book in here. I mean, he's got tons of references of Tartary in different books. And he says this on page, on another book, he says, they therefore yielded due reverence of the great Khan, promised that they would faithfully execute the charge committed unto them, and present the letters which they received from him, written in the Tartarian tongue, according to his command unto the Bishop of Rome. Okay, so then he goes on with more pages and more quotes. And then he goes down, my collection increases fairly regularly and is now too extensive to include something from each one. So he has tons of books, okay? And it says, Poland was originally part of the Tartarian Empire and one of the first countries to break away. In 1550 AD, Duke Lech gained their independence with a lot of help from the Holy Roman Empire, okay? And now, do you know the Holy Roman Empire, the Vatican, nothing but snakes, reptilians, just going to tell you. No pun intended. I'm just saying, you got to do your work. You got to do your research and study thyself approved, especially when you see that great big old conference center that they built that literally looks like a serpent when you stand in it. And then the huge display of art that's behind the podium where the so-called Pope would stand and give his lectures. Okay. I'm just saying. It's a lot. It's a lot to take in. So it says, at the same time, most of the Western Europe was populated by Celts. The Celts descended from the Gomer, the son of Japheth, the eldest son of Noah. The Celts also went on to dominate Germany, Hungary, and Spain, leaving the rest of Tartarian Empire under the control of Magog, Gomer's brother. Okay. Then Tartaria was known as Scythia, and its inhabitants were referred to as nomads due to their desire to wander and rarely settle. In ancient times, they were also known as Avars and the Mongols, but more commonly the Turks. Okay. And it says Tamerlane was one of the most celebrated kings of Tartar and ruled 1370 AD to 1405 AD. During his reign, he conquered Persia, Turkestan, most of Russia, Hindustan, which is now called India. He sacked Aleppo, Baghdad, and Damascus, and went on to also conquer Syria and Asia Minor. Ambassadors of every sovereignty in the world would visit Tamerlane to pay their respects on a fairly regular basis. They did. The capital of the Tartarian Empire was Samarkand, and each region was governed by a Khan or prince of its own. Their ethos was heavily focused on spiritual growth, healing using frequency and vibration, not just the people, but animals too, as well as the advancement in technology and later free world travel. So they got rid of the free energy and they got rid of the travel with this last reset. They set up shop. They started with the technology from the otherworldly beings to create this atmosphere and to create this curriculum that they now make money and harvest our energy from. Just saying. If you know and you lay the pieces together, you'll see it. So they had the advancement in technology and later free world travel and free energy. They practiced feng shui when constructing the most incredible buildings, ensuring that they aligned with the ley lines of the earth of this dome. Okay. It is thought by some that one particular group of Tartarians were also known as Breatharians. Okay. Y'all heard me talk about them before in videos, probably years back. Breatharians, a being that does not rely on eating food for sustenance, rather getting its energy from the ether, AETHER, which they removed from our educational system. They don't teach about the ether. Just saying. In the same way, a plant or tree gets its energy from the great spirit, the great source. You want to call it God? All right. Doesn't go by that name, but I'm just saying I'll rock with you on that. In the same way a plant or energy gets its energy. This is possibly why we don't see any sewer systems or waste treatment plants in the old world Tartarian cities. And now, since we came in after the mud flood and dug up and revamped some of the buildings and repurposed some of the buildings and also changed the outside inscription of them, they put plumbing in for us. Okay. Tartarian studied the Book of Changes, which was the science of refining one's own energy with the goal of living a long and enlightened life. Breathing techniques were used as a revitalize, as well as keeping their thoughts disciplined to keep in line with the Almighty Creator of all. And what do we do now? We go into these religious institutions and we read from a book and we have a man sit up there or a woman and tell us what we need to know or what they want us to know because they say they're entangled with the Creator of all and they wear the cloth and they are a man or woman of God when they have no knowledge really of their self and what the Creator is because they have not taken the time to go in and meditate, fast, change their eating habits, definitely not eat meat. Okay, and separate themselves from the world. 9 times out of 10, most people who preach, they got a 9 to 5 job. And if they're lucky, then maybe the church takes care of them. But I'm just simply saying, it's not what the ancient texts say is not what they're alluding to today. Okay, that's my point. I don't care who gets angry or gets offended by it. I'm keeping it 100. Do your research. You go do your research. Okay, I'm just sharing some interesting things. The Book of Changes, all right, which was the science of refining one's own energy. That's why I talked about tuning forks. That's why I said we're electromagnetic beings. And I talk about the Christ oil, the chrism that sits at the base of the spine and rises up to the top of the pineal gland. Talks about our different chakras, our root system. I'm telling you, I'm just simply saying. Breathing techniques were used to revitalize us as well as keeping their thoughts disciplined to keep in line with the Almighty Creator of all. Who the Almighty Creator of all actually is varies dramatically depending on your own personal beliefs. He said that. And thoughts. Christians would state that it is God. Muslims worship Muhammad, and many others, myself included, believe the Almighty Creator to be a source of energy that cannot be seen. Yet we are all a part of it, and it is a part of us because it powers these vessels. When you have a heart attack, you drop, you stop breathing, whatever. Somebody's going to come over and check your pulse. They're going to clear your airway, probably breathe into your mouth, or either start chest compressions, and they're going to say, call 911. They got an AED. They're going to go grab it. They're going to plug the machine up, crank it up, and first thing they're going to do is pull your shirt off, clear and shock your ass. And it's because you're an electromagnetic being. And that means your body, your energy body is leaving this physical body and you're going back to the ether, AETHER, to be entangled with the creator of all. But the system has been hijacked. Just simply telling you. I find it fascinating. I get excited to just read this to you guys. So basically, it says the creator to be a source of energy that cannot be yet seen. Okay, and that's why we had 0 point energy at one time, because they were tapping into source, because they understood what the creator of all is. It's an energy field. It's consciousness. It's intelligence. It's light. People want to say it's a man sitting on the throne and God's got a long white beard. You don't understand that you're God yourself. And we walk around living externally when we need to be looking inside ourselves. Don't get me on a tangent. I'm just simply trying to read. Let me just get to it. The creator to be a source of energy that cannot be seen, yet we're all a part of, and it is a part of us. Sometimes I refer to the source of energy as Gaia, more than nature, but never as a person, being, or a deity. It is a thing. But if you want to call God a man, okay. But it encompasses light and dark. It encompasses male and female aspect. I'm simply telling you, man, they just did a number on us with this knowledge. I'm telling you. And I probably sound like a crazy person to some of y'all, but it just gets me to the point where I get excited about it, because it's like, it is so freaking obvious what they've done. It's so freaking obvious. It says, Tartarians fasted during certain astronomical stages and could go considerable lengths of time without eating or drinking. I have a problem getting 3 days. I'm trying to do 7. I need to get to 40. I'm just telling you. They also had very different view to illness, seeking the assistance of a lama, a teacher of the Dharma in the Tibetan Buddhism, at the nearest monastery. When someone was sick, the lama would run their fingers over both wrist pulses simultaneously to diagnose the patient's condition, not going to a doctor and get prescriptions for a damn disease that they created by the toxins and the poisons that they're putting in the atmosphere and the water and in your body when you're born. You wonder why people are developing cancers? Check your vaccines. I'm just simply saying, come on, man. It's just so obvious what they did, y'all. Come on now. I ain't preaching. I'm just simply telling you, man. It's just, when you know, okay? And once you see, you cannot unsee. To be aware is to be alive. Thank you, Original Lone Wolf. I'm just telling you, the hearts of women and men's minds are corrupt. They don't see it. They can't see it. This is foreign to them. It's the devil. I'm speaking in tongues. I'm got Satan on my back, because I'm telling you the truth. I'm exposing the bullshit. So it says they went to a lama, and when someone was sick, the lama would run their fingers over both wrists, okay, to check their pulses simultaneously and diagnose the patient's condition. The remedy was also always pulp vegetables and water that wasn't toxic, with PFAS in it, and Uncle Fester, the ingredients of which were written onto a piece of paper, and both were eaten, believing the prescription wasn't effective as the medicine itself. It wasn't no placebo effect. All is mind, all is thought, all is vibration. Like Chief said, you say to yourself every morning, I am healthy, I am well, I am whole, I am prospering. You have to know it. It's not about you believing a thing. We are at this time where we're out of time. This is the last days for us. We're on the 7th reset. We're the 7th new humanity. And we cannot just walk around here getting offended by what people say that may have some truth to it, and it just doesn't resonate with you because you stuck in your own perverse thought, what they programmed you to be since you were a babe. Grown up in this world, you've been taught a thing. Only way for you to get back to the kingdom of heaven is for you to let go of everything that you've ever been taught, because you got to know that it was all bullshit. You got to know it was all a lie. I'm just telling you. And if you don't know, you don't know. And if you don't agree, well, this is just entertainment purposes only. I'm just saying. I'm just keeping it 100. When you know a thing. So, funny how when you go into a facility to get your prescription, okay, you have to go so many months every month to keep you on these pills that, by the way, Rockefeller and Carnegie and all the other families got in cahoots with Rothschilds. They created the system where they could use the blood in the bodies from the giants and the giant creatures that were here, because this is a graveyard from all the mud floods, okay? Our ancestors' bones, they keep them wet in the cellar. I'm just simply saying they harness energy. You think witchcraft is not real? What do you think they got people walking around here doing right now? We are so far removed from where we used to be. It's unbelievable. We have fallen to almost the lowest existence. We've been dumbed down so damn bad. When you go into a doctor's office now, they want to give you the shot to get you to lose weight. They want to get you on pills. They don't want to give you a prescription. It's very damn hard for them to give you a prescription of how to eat right, what fruits and vegetables you would take to cure the ailments in your body. You would have to go to a holistic doctor, a naturopath, not an MD who was raised up into the system of perversion and lies to keep you stuck on those medications, which are petroleum based, to keep these families rich and keep you sick. There is no cure. There is no money in the cure. There is money in the treatment that they've came up with. Okay. And anybody who looks outside of that system is then deemed pseudoscience, conspiracy theorist, or crackpot, because you don't align with their beliefs and their structure and their indoctrination. Okay. Our ancestors knew better. And it wasn't that long ago. Okay. So it says, some say that the first ruler of the Tartarian Empire was a King Solomon, soul of a man. It's a whole different construct. Just going to read it. And there are several mentions of the race of people and great nation in ancient scriptures, including the Old Testament. Even today, we see the word Tartar is a very much alive and well. When eating steak, most of us will quickly avoid the rarest option, steak tartare. Okay. Of course, this is very small yet significant reminder of what once was, but there is a far greater evidence of the forgotten or hidden empire, including the Gulf of Tartary, which can be found in the Pacific Ocean, separating mainland Asia from Russia, island of the Sakhalin. I hope I said that right. The word Tartary in ancient scripture actually means the world under the world, which is ironic when you consider their history and architecture has mostly been wiped out during the mud floods. And they only repurposed a small fraction of the buildings, but there were so many grand cities. And you can see it more so over in Europe than you can here in the Americas, okay? It says, however, in reality, it actually translates to Tartarians. They weren't that dissimilar to us today, with the exception of some of them being up to 12 feet in height, if not more, what you might refer to as a giant, but without the features and medical issues giantism usually sees. The average height was an impressive 10 feet. This would certainly explain why so many old buildings and churches have such huge doors, and you can go online and just start doing a search. You'll see how wide the doorways are and how tall the windows were. And windows, as well as the windows being too high for us to see out of, and ceilings being far higher, and makes practical sense, especially when we apparently didn't have sufficient or efficient heating back then. Moscow was conquered by the Russian Romanovs in 1868, but Peter the Great decided that despite defending the Tartarians here, he was uncomfortable with Moscow being so close to the remaining Tartaric border. So shortly after relocated to St. Petersburg, which became the headquarters for the NWO, the New World Order. I'm telling you, when they destroyed this last big reset, this was a push to just kill it all and to bring in this technology that the Anunnaki wanted to create. But some of the giants, the Shaki, helped us to escape through Asgard. Yeah, there is a place called Asgard. Okay. And I'm just telling you, it sounds fantastical, but when you see all the wars and the devastation and destruction and how they reseeded this planet with my beautiful light-skinned brothers and sisters, you'll see that the destruction came, and it's been nonstop since the last mud flood. I'm just saying, the wars and the destruction and the killing of our people, the melanated people all around the world. It's the original people in Cathay. I've shown pictures of that. Chief Red Wolf has talked about it. Kimura has talked about it. The history is there, but take your time and go see it. Last part, and this is it because I'm out of time, and I'm going to make this short. Russia has one of the largest links to Tartaria, and as recently as 1990, Tartaristan announced that it was to become a sovereignty and become the Tatar Socialist Republic, thus reclaiming a piece of its past. This was later supported by Vladimir Putin in 2013. He made Tartarian maps public, and in 2017 presented the president of Tartaristan with a map of Tartaria, which was created by Wilhelm and Joan Blue back in 1671 before the reset. And that goes back to my ancestors being here in the Americas, and if not further. I'm just simply saying they've given us a lot of bullshit. So it says the Tartarians practiced many different religions, but not in the same way we do today. They decided they didn't go to church and pray. They meditated and used the buildings we refer to as churches, universities, and cathedrals to do their meditation, to do all of their work. Okay, so it says they didn't go to church and pray. They meditated and used the buildings we refer to as churches and cathedrals to do so. Combined with the church organ pipes and the bells that they've destroyed and removed the organs, these parasites that we talked about, these elites, mother freakers, they use this, okay? They combine with the church organs being set to correct frequency for life, 432 hertz, and to cymatic and the cymatic windows resonating this throughout the building. It was more of a spiritual journey of self-development. The original religion of most Tartarians was, and perhaps still is, the Mohammetanism intertwined with idolatrous superstition. And that's what he says. I'm going to say this. If you know, you know. Okay. We are gods incarnate in this flesh, in this avatar, and we're not tapped in because we have too much muck in our cup and we haven't cleared the cup. And the energy flows. Okay. Energy flows where intention goes. Where's your energy going? Where are you pointed to in the direction of your life? Because if it's not on self-improvement, self-development, and reconnecting with the creator of all, then what are we doing? Literally, you're just existing, you're not living. Last part, they had a universal language, which some state was based on Arabic and Sanskrit, and others, mainly in Europe, state that they spoke Scythian. Nicholas Sanson wrote about this in Atlas of Asia, which published in 1653. The Scythians were founders and carriers of culture in the Caucasus, from the upper reaches of the Kuban River with a K to the modern Dagestan. Okay, I'm out of time, so I'm just going to finish this one paragraph. Their flag was dominated by a griffin, okay, considered by them to have been a real creature, which it is, okay, as were centaurs, unicorns, and mermaids, baby, okay. The Tartarians belief is a lack of knowledge and knowing. The Tartarians knew that griffins mated for life, and when one lost its partner, would spend the rest of its days in solitude, never seeking a new mate. This led to claims by the Vatican that the griffin was a symbol against remarriage. Had to get the reptilian ways in there, baby. Just simply saying. The people of the great empire consisted of several races and creeds, including the first natives of America, known as, and this is where I disagree, the Moors. We were not Moors. Moors are different from freaking Negroes or the American Indian. That's a fact, okay? And it says the Toltecs, the Mayans, the Turks, the Aztecs, and then the Mongols, which, here he comes. The most famous Mongolian king was Genghis Khan. And there's a documentary out there that shows you that Genghis Khan was my complexion with long dreads. I'm just going to tell you. He wasn't a light-skinned light-skinned person that we now have displayed today. Like I said, everything's been whitewashed because they had to write themselves into history. No pun intended. Not trying to piss anybody off. Go do your research. It says Khan, okay, it says Genghis Khan, Mongolian being Genghis or Genghis Khan. Khan's father was known as Yasugi, which represents the number 9 and is actually pronounced as Yashua. Yashua, or in the real name of, it says Yashua, and is the real name of Jesus of Nazareth. Boom. Today we would pronounce this as Joshua. Genghis was an Eastern Tartar and with his sons conquered most of Asia, Eastern Europe, and Germany between 1200 AD to 1260 AD. Together, they formed the most powerful empire that was existed as Kipjak. Kipjak. And it says, the Moors originated from Africa, which they were Mauritanian, we know that. And the term Moors was even used by Shakespeare. Moors, if you look up the definition, I'm not trying to argue with anybody, but it refers to great seafarers. Okay, I'm just going to simply say, you got to do your own research. For someone that descended from there, they are responsible of the Tartarian style, the Greco-Roman, which we now call it today because history was rewritten and it was, again, whitewashed. And it says architecture and culture across all the Americas, but history has been purposely rewritten to tell us that Christopher Columbus, which was not what his name was, Salvador Fernando, is it Fernando something Zarco is his name. That's his real name. It's no Christopher Columbus. And discovered the continent in 1492. That's what the history was written to. However, there is a clear evidence that the Moors arrived from Africa some 180 years earlier. They did, and they traded with my ancestors, the American Indians. And that's how they intermixed in with us. And that's how they brought these infiltrators over here. And the 7 countries invaded our country here in the Americas. It was thanks to people who look like us, but are not of us. I'm just going to tell you. And it says, this again helps create the connective between buildings in America having the exact same style and construction methods as those we see throughout the rest of the world. The White House and the Vatican, which the White House is known as the Franklin House, and it was nothing but niggas that lived there. Just going to tell you, not to offend anybody. The Vatican are just 2 well-known examples of this, but there have been many, many more. It's also worth noting that during the reign of the Moors, San Francisco was the western capital of the Tartarian Empire. The Tartarians in general were considered to be very well dressed and what we would refer to as today a steampunk kind of sort of style. They even dressed up to go swimming and always wore hats as they did as children. Why do you think our ancestors, grandmothers and aunties and uncles dressed sharp as a tack, especially here in America? Because we dressed. That's part of the Tartarian Empire. This is all that I'm going to stop at. I'm going to stop right there. I'm going to mark the page. We're on page 3, and I'm over 30 minutes now, so I'm going to jump off here. But I hope this has been beneficial. This has been an excellent reading, you guys, and I tried to bring it home for you. I'm trying to condense these videos, so I have a lot of information still that's going in my head that I want to say on camera, but I'll just have to wait until next time. I hope you guys have an amazing day, and remember what I always say, be the change that you want to see all around this Earth Dome, because it's up to you and I to make a positive change. I appreciate you taking the time out to support me and reading and us growing and learning and knowledge. I am not trying to offend anyone. I'm just simply giving you a different perspective. It is up to you to do your own research, right? I'll talk to you guys soon.